Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are talking about all the things that you need to consider when buying a guitar. Now, this came about because when I was in LA for NAMM, I bought a guitar at Norm's Rare Guitars, and I started thinking, like, what are all the things that I really need to consider when going somewhere like Norm's, where the price tag is not going to be low. You know, it's not going to be cheap what I'm about to do. So what are the things that I'm looking for in my guitar? And that got me thinking, well, what are the things that I would need to look for if I were a beginner? Or what about my second guitar or third guitar? What about acoustic versus electric? What about, you know, a guitar that just feels right? What do I really need to weigh when I'm thinking, should I buy this guitar or not? Now, I've bought quite a few guitars in my lifetime, and it's actually something that I'm very good at. And I am not one to brag on this channel. Like, I don't think I'm the best guitar player. I don't think I'm the best teacher. But I do know that I'm really good at buying guitars. So I hope that you can bear with me on this. I've been able to find incredible deals as well. I've bought a brand new Gibson ES335 for about $2,800. I've bought a $2,300 Martin brand new for about $900. I have a vintage Gibson from 1959 that I got for $800. So all this to say, I hope you'll trust me as we go through this journey together. So here are what I consider to be the 4 main things that you should think about when you're going in to purchase a guitar. They are, in no particular order: sound. Does it sound good to you? Look. Does it look good to you? Do you care if it's a little more beat up if you're buying used, etc., etc.? Price. Is it within your budget? Is it going to make your wife divorce you? Motive, which is, why do you want to buy a guitar? Why do you always go to your local guitar store every Saturday morning to see what they've got in? You know, why are you prowling Facebook Marketplace looking for used guitars? And the last one, which is kind of opening a can of worms, but we got to do it anyway, which is feel. Now, feel means something different to everybody, but to me, it kind of sits hand in hand with like playability and functionality. Right? So for instance, there's a lot that goes into feel that has to do with basically just how is the guitar set up, right? That's actually how I was able to get my $2,000 Martin for $900. Is it was just set up really poorly, so nobody wanted to buy it because every time they played it, it was like, it doesn't feel right, the strings are old, blah, blah, blah. It had been put on clearance because it had sat for so long, but I picked it up and I could hear that it sounded really good. And I thought, you know what? I bet with the setup and a fresh pack of strings, this guitar would be sick, and it is. The other thing that has to do with feel is like quality of parts. Are the tuners a good enough quality that they'll stay in tune? Are there electrical shortages? What's going on? And the thing is, a lot of like small parts like tuners or even pickups can be swapped out for something else if there is a problem. It's just an added expense that you have to think about when you're purchasing. Then there are elements of feel and construction and quality that are harder to fix. So for instance, if you like a smoother neck rather than a glossy neck, you can refinish it, but it's going to cost a lot more. It's a lot more difficult. Same thing with like neck shape, right? If you like a thinner neck, you can always shave it down, which again is going to cost you a lot of money, but it can be done. But you can't go thicker, right? So anyway, there's a lot that goes into that there. And then there are things where people just pick up a guitar and go, I don't know what it is, but it just feels right. So again, feel is very subjective. I've bought guitars that are in great shape. I've bought guitars that are in rough shape, but I was able to do that and kind of know, okay, it will require this much work, this much money, this much this, that, and the other thing to just get this to a point where it's functional and feels good. A lot of it just has to do with your experience playing guitars and whether or not you know what's important to you when it comes to how does the guitar feel and function under your fingers. That being said, because feel is such a subjective thing, you'll see that it's pretty high up on all of my lists. Now we got to talk about the motives, the reasons for why you're buying a guitar. Because this will directly influence how much weight you place on each of these other reasons. How important is price to you? How important is feel to you? Blah, blah, blah. So our first person that we're going to talk about is the learner, the beginning guitarist. The second one I would probably call the casual guitarist, even though that's not always the right person or the right label, but it's someone who is trying to buy, only maybe 3 guitars at most in their life, right? They have their first guitar they've ever bought, and then they have an electric, an acoustic, and they're done, right? That's it. They don't want to buy any more guitars. They're just going to play those for the rest of their life. Then the next person I would say would probably be the collector, right? Someone, I think I fit into this category where like I just like buying guitars, so I keep buying them because I gotta have one in every color and every pickup configuration and semi-hollow and just, I'm always 2 guitars away from having every guitar I'll ever need. The next person is someone who has this X factor with a specific guitar, right? This is someone who picked up a guitar one day at a guitar shop and just felt an immediate connection, right? And then the last person was, I would say, someone who's buying a guitar specifically for a gig. So we're going to go over all of those. Here we go. Before we get started, I will say that I think there's kind of 2 ways to look at each one of these factors that we need to consider, right? You can look at them as barriers, where if it passes the first barrier, then you can move on to the second one. So if it's in your price range, cool, then let's move on to feel. If it passes the feel test, then let's move on to sound, etc., right? The other way to look at it is kind of like a sum of all of its parts, and which order I put them in is like how much weight in the equation they make or they matter, right? So for instance, if you're buying a guitar for a gig, right, how much is it? Does it sound good? Does it play well? Does it look good? And does the balance of all of those, when you weigh them, serve the purpose of buying a guitar specifically for a gig? Hope that helps. Let's get into it. What the hell was that? First up, we've got the beginner. Now, whether or not it's electric or acoustic, I'm going to leave that up to your guitar teacher, all right? Because there are so many people who say one thing and disagree with the other that I'm not even going to enter into that debate. I will say this. I think it's smart to find someone in your area who knows guitars well enough to be able to go with you and find all the pitfalls that you might miss if you're a beginning guitarist. So, if you're looking for an acoustic guitar, thinking about how big is the body versus you, and will that affect your desire to play it? Does the guitar stay in tune, and will that frustrate you if it doesn't? Because that would frustrate me, right? So keep that in mind. But first and foremost, I would say that when it comes to being a beginner guitarist, I think that the first thing you have to consider is price. The reason why is because it's kind of a touchy subject, but everyone has their own kind of barrier, like I said, if you will, of what they're willing to spend when it's their first, because they don't know if they're going to get into it. They don't know if they like it yet or their kid likes it yet. But even with that, there are people who say, well, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to buy the $3,000 Strat or whatever, right? For your first guitar, I would recommend spending a minimum of $200. There are some great guitars for under $200, and these are all new prices, mind you. There are some great guitars for under $200, but I feel like it's a safe bet to stick above $200 in that $200 to $500 price range, especially. That's where like the Squier Classic vibes sit, or like, you start getting into Epiphones that are worth it. But hey, fight me in the comments about that. The next thing I would say is feel, because you need to know if you're buying a guitar that's going to be comfortable to play. Otherwise, you're not going to want to play it. The next and third thing would be look. Honestly, does it look good? And Rhett Scholl has even talked about that, where he said, if you see a guitar that looks cool, you're going to want to pick it up and play it. So look matters. And lastly, sound. The reason why sound is at the bottom for me on this one is because you're new. You don't really know what you want to hear yet. Now, you could say, okay, well, I'm really into Slash from Guns N' Roses, so I really want something like a Les Paul and, double humbuckers and that sort of thing. Cool. Like, if you can make that happen, love it. But I think that feel and look are more important than sound is in this instance. So do with that what you will. This was my first guitar. It is an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2. Now, this came from a starter pack that was $200 when I first got it for my 11th birthday, I think it was. And the thing is that's really unfortunate about these, I actually love this guitar still, and it holds a tune really well, so I'll usually use it as my down tune or slide electric guitar, especially in recording situations. But the problem is I had been recommending them for my students, and the past 2 students that I've had that have bought them, they kind of came in pretty rough shape. So I don't know that I necessarily recommend the Special 2 anymore, which is sad to say because I love this thing. But it fit that bill, right? It fit the kind of $200 price point. And again, this was back in like what, $2007 or whatever. So $200 then is probably closer to like $300 or $400 now. But this is it. Up next, we have the casual player. Now, this again is someone who's looking to only buy like 3 guitars in their lifetime, to have their lifetime guitar and play it till they die and then pass it on to their kids so their kid can play it till they die, which I love that. I wish I was that kind of person because I would have a lot more money. You'll find that my priorities for the casual player versus the collector are fairly similar. The only thing that changes is where price is located. So for me, if you're the kind of casual player where you're going to want to buy one guitar for the rest of your life, play it till you die, like I just said, then to me, for an electric guitar, it goes feel, look, sound, and then price matters least of all because it's the last one you're going to buy. Who cares? Spend all your money on it, right? Go into debt. In actuality, the reason why I don't put sound higher is because with electric guitars, if you don't like the sound, you can often swap pickups out, change things up, right? There's options for customization there. When it comes to acoustic, however, sound's at the top of the list for me. It goes sound, feel, look, and then price because it matters with acoustic, right? You can't change that. If acoustic sounds bad, if it sounds thin, if it sounds tinny, or if it sounds too full and warm because you don't like a dreadnought sound, then you can't change that. So that's kind of my qualifications there for the casual player. This ideally should have been my last guitar, right? It's my Fender Tele. It was actually put together by one of my teachers, and I bought it off of him for $325, and I absolutely love it. When I say put together, it's like this is like a Mexican neck with like an American body, or I think it was a Japanese body and American pickups. So like it's kind of a disaster, right? But I love it. It's one of the most comfortable guitars I've ever played. I would not give it up for the world. So hope that helps. If we're talking acoustics, probably the closest that I have to a forever guitar is my Triple Aught 28 by Martin. It's comfortable. It's long lasting. It is a great sounding guitar. The play is great, right? It's a lifetime guitar, right? It is what it is, and it's at a lifetime guitar price point. So wahoo? I don't know, man. Do with that what you will. Up next, we have the collector. Now, the collector, like I said before, is someone who likes to buy guitars for the sake of buying guitars. I am a collector. I love guitars. I will buy so many more throughout my life. To me, when it comes to an electric, it goes price, feel, look, sound. Again, you can adjust pickups. You can change the sound if you want. There is an argument to say, well, does it have a good acoustic sound, right? When it's unplugged, can you strum it and it sounds vibrant, full, and all that jazz, right? Which I believe in as well. But I also still would, again, put that below feel because I think having a comfortable guitar is really important. And maybe that's just me, and I'm okay with that. And of course, with acoustics, we have price, sound, feel, look. For me, the reason why I put price at the top for collectors is because a lot of us, because we're collectors, don't always have the money to buy guitars. So I put it at the top as kind of a barrier to say like, okay, if you go into a guitar shop, think ahead and think like, how much could I reasonably spend on a guitar right now? And if that is $500, then cool. If that's $6,000, wonderful, right? Whatever your price point is, try to operate within that because maybe I'll get crap for this. Buying a guitar 99% of the time is not worth blowing up your financial security over. Many of you guys know that I am a big fan of the Revstar, thanks to Chris Buck, of course. And I bought this because I wanted to try it out, and it has become one of my favorite guitars. I probably play it every day, and it checks all the boxes, right? It was at a good price point because I got the one that's like just under $1,000, right? And it's comfortable to play. I love the matte finish on the neck. I actually love the tailpiece that creates less of a break angle on the strings. It's very much my style of guitar. I do wish the neck was a little thinner because I got little hands. I'm a little guy. But, you know, what are you going to do, right? This next one is one that I hope and pray every single one of you gets to experience at some point in your life. This is the X factor is probably the best way to describe it, but this is when you buy a guitar because it speaks to you. It speaks to your soul, right? There's something in the air when you pick it up that says, this is now your guitar. For me, it's this old 1959 Gibson. When I bought it, I was at a guitar shop in Salt Lake called Acoustic Music. The neck was separated from the body, did not have strings on it, could not test it to play it, but I looked at it from across the room and I knew that was my guitar. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a video here. There's also videos through this whole thing that I'm probably going to tag here, so feel free to check out the rest of the channel. I don't know, like and subscribe, all the things you're supposed to do. But this one is always weird because when you have that connection, all the other things kind of have to fall away, right? Because the connection matters. It's ethereal. So if I had to put them in order, I would say number one is that X factor. Do you connect with the guitar? The next one that I would say is feel and sound, but those can kind of be interchanged in most cases, right? Especially when there's the X factor involved. Then I would say look, and then I would say price, because if you connect with the guitar, it doesn't matter how much you spend on it. And if you need help convincing your wife, you can email me at macwrightmusic.com. Gladly jump on a Zoom call with y'all. The last one probably matters most to people who are trying to make a living from this, or, you know, who are taking on a lot of different types of gigs. And that is, are you buying an instrument or a guitar for a specific gig where you need that sound? So especially if you're a professional and this is your main source of income, it all comes down to ROI, right? Are you going to make the money back on this purchase? So I would say the first thing that matters the most is sound, because if you're taking a gig for a specific sound, you need that sound, right? Makes sense. The next one I would say is price, because you want to make sure that, especially if you're trying to make money on the gig, that you don't overspend and that you don't end up losing money on the gig that you're taking. Up next would be feel, and last would be look. Now I'm holding a mandolin. Obviously this is not a guitar. But the reason I'm holding a mandolin is because it's a story about a gig that I got where I was actually out like camping more or less. And so I didn't really have great phone service, but I got to a point where I had phone service and an email came through on a Saturday. And it was from the Utah Symphony. And they said, hey, do you want to play with Kristen Chenoweth next Saturday? And I wrote back and I said, absolutely. What instruments? Thinking like electric, acoustic, nylon. And they sent back electric, acoustic, nylon, and mandolin. And I said, great, I'll be there. And then I found more service so I could call the guitar shop that I was working at the time and say, hey, do you have a mandolin with a pickup in it? Because I need one. And they said, yes, it's X amount of dollars. And I, at that point, hadn't heard back about the contract, so I didn't actually know how much they were going to pay me, but I knew that I did not want to pass up an opportunity to play with the Utah Symphony and Kristen Chenoweth, so I bought it, gave them my card information, and honestly, I actually ended up still making money on the gig, and this has come in handy. I'm playing in the pit orchestra for a musical next week where I have to use it, so ROI, good. Anyway, I hope this helped you guys. Let me know down in the comments if there are things that you think should have been on this list as far as like specifics that you think everyone should know about, right? I mentioned that like feel is kind of this all-encompassing thing, but is there something else that you think I missed? I'd love to hear that. Let me know what's important to you as a player, because I'd love to go shopping with that in mind and see how that goes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. My name is Mac Wright. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. If you're returning, thank you so much for being a part of the channel. Please go make someone else's day better. We'll see you around. Cool.